People ask me a lot of questions about saws. They want to know which ones, how big, how many. People even want to know if it's possible to buy one saw and get started in hand tool woodworking. And I mean, one saw, that's ridiculous, right? Well, actually, it's not ridiculous at all. A couple of years ago, I started a series called Woodwork for Humans, where I started over again with no bench and no tools. And to get that series started, I picked up this Japanese Ryoba saw, and I used it as my only saw to do a bunch of projects. I built this tool tote, this mallet, this traditional milking stool, and even this box with dovetailed corner joints, using the Ryoba as my only saw. Just recently, I helped my 3D designer, Nate D., build an entire workbench from start to finish, and the only saw he used was this inexpensive Ryoba. These saws are so versatile because they've got two sets of teeth, rip and crosscut. They're aggressive enough to break down stock, they're fine enough to do joinery cuts, they're flexible so you can flush cut with them. It's really just a great all-around saw. You can pick up one of these and do a bunch of projects with no other saws. Now, after you've been using the Ryoba for a while, you might get a little bit frustrated with it because this is really a medium tool. It's not coarse enough to handle really big cuts in thick stock, and it's not fine enough to do really great joinery. It's a little too coarse for that. It's right in the middle, sort of a compromise tool. So once you get good with the Ryoba, you need to go in two directions. You need saws that are much more coarse and aggressive to break down stock, especially when you've got big, thick boards. You also need finer, more lightweight saws so you can make better, straighter joinery cuts. You need both kinds of tools. Of course, you also have to decide whether you're going with Western or Japanese saws, and there is a whole completely tedious debate about which one is better. Both styles of saws work really well. The thing that should help you pick is, what do you want to build? If you want to make Japanese furniture or sort of Asian-inspired furniture, use Japanese saws. Personally, I build mostly early American furniture, so I use American and British saws. My tools are determined by the projects I want to make. If we're talking about big, aggressive saws for breaking down stock, then we're talking about handsaws. And these are fantastic tools if you're getting into hand tool woodworking because they're so available and they're usually really cheap, especially if you live in North America or the United Kingdom. In these places, companies like Simmons, Adkins, and especially Diston produced handsaws by the millions. That's not an exaggeration. They literally made millions of them. And they sold them to carpenters, joiners, furniture makers, business owners, homeowners, basically everybody. Not too long ago, pretty much everybody owned some handsaws. But now, pretty much nobody owns any handsaws. And so they don't have very much value on the used market. So this is a true story. Just a couple days ago, I was walking down the street in my neighborhood, and one of my neighbors was throwing this saw away. He was literally just pitching it in the garbage, and there's nothing wrong with it. This will clean up to be a great user, and that's how little value it had to my neighbor. He wasn't even recycling it. He was just throwing it in the trash. So if you want to get into handsaws, they're usually really available and really inexpensive. But if you're going to pick saws intelligently, you need to understand a couple of key variables. The first thing is the style of teeth. There's basically two kinds of handsaws, rip or crosscut, and they've got really different tooth geometry. So here are the teeth on a rip saw, and you can see that they're filed straight across, and the tip of the tooth is flat. It's a lot like a little chisel. And when you're ripping, cutting wood with the grain, those chisel tips chip out little pieces of grain, letting you make a fast, efficient rip cut. Now, the other tooth style is the crosscut, and these teeth are sharpened differently. They come to a really sharp needle point, very different than the rip saw. These needle points slice across the wood grain, and they sever those fibers when you're cross-cutting to make pieces of wood shorter. Now, in addition to rip versus crosscut, you also have to understand saw pitch, which is the number of teeth per inch. Now, there's a couple different ways of measuring saw pitch because this is woodworking and nothing is ever simple. So I've got a set of calipers here and I've got them set to exactly an inch. Even metric countries usually measure saw pitch in inches. Now, the first way I can measure teeth is measuring in between the gullets. Those are the little valleys in between the teeth. So what I do is I set my calipers to the gullets in between two teeth, just like this. And then I count the teeth in between. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is a 6 teeth per inch or TPI saw. So somebody would advertise this as 6 TPI. Now, there's another way of doing this, which is points per inch. And it's just a little bit different, just enough to be confusing. If you're measuring points per inch, you set your caliper or your measuring tool on 2 points, and then you count those points and the points in between. So I'll start here and count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This saw is 7 points per inch or 7 PPI. And that's the way it always works out. Points per inch is always 1 more than teeth per inch. So if I'm looking at saws and somebody says, oh, this saw is 8 points per inch, I just automatically translate that into my head into 7 teeth per inch, because that's just more familiar to me. Here's why saw pitch matters. When a saw has more teeth per inch, like 8 or 9, that saw cuts more finely, but also more slowly. So it's going to take you longer to make a cut, but you're going to get less chipping and splintering. When a saw is really coarse and has a small number of teeth per inch, like 6 or 7, that saw is going to be really fast and aggressive, but it's going to leave a much rougher surface. Now, personally, for furniture work, I like really aggressive, fast saws. And that might sound weird because I'm making fine furniture and I want nicely prepared edges and ends. But the thing about furniture making is I almost never use components straight off the saw. I cut them to rough length and then I plane the edges and I shoot the ends to make that final component. So since I'm going to be planing those surfaces anyway, I really don't care if they're rough off the saw. And my main handsaws, the ones you see hanging behind me there, those are 6 TPI. I've got a rip and a crosscut, both at 6 teeth per inch, and they are fast and very aggressive. I actually thought they were the most aggressive you could get until just recently. We have this thing on my Patreon where I have some notable woodworker come every month and give my patrons an exclusive lecture. And just last month, we had the editors of Mortise and Tenon magazine, and here's one of their editors, Mike Updegraff, and he is demonstrating a 4 TPI ripsaw and how efficient it is. And Mike is absolutely annihilating this board. He is going through it faster than I thought was possible. Honestly, I didn't even know 4 TPI saws existed, but now I kind of want one. So if you're looking for saws to do furniture work and break down your rough stock, I recommend very aggressive saws. I would say for your rip saw, 6 or 7 TPI is about right. And then your crosscut saw could be equally coarse, or you could go a little finer, maybe 7 or 8 TPI, because sometimes that extra fineness does save you some chipping on woods like oak. So it can be worth having a few more teeth on your crosscut saw. The good thing about handsaws is they're usually so expensive, you can buy a handful and kind of experiment. See what works for you. Now, even if we're just talking about handsaws, there's still a couple sizes that we need to think about. The saws that we've been talking about mostly in this video are true handsaws. They're between probably 26 and 30 inches long. There's a lot of variability, but those are the big ones. Then there's another set of saws that are called panel saws, either because they fit in the panel of a toolbox or because they were used to cut up panel stock for frame and panel construction. Again, this is woodworking, so we can't have just one explanation for anything. That would be chaos. Anyway, panel saws are the exact same shape and they work the exact same way as full-size handsaws. They're obviously just smaller and they often have finer teeth, more teeth per inch. So what do you need to know about the difference between handsaws and panel saws? Well, really not much. The differences are pretty obvious. A handsaw is usually going to be bigger, stronger, and more aggressive. A panel saw is usually going to cut a little bit slower because it's got a shorter plate, so you can't take a super long stroke. They're usually a little bit finer, but they can be pretty aggressive too. The main difference is in handling and convenience. Full-size handsaws are really fast and aggressive, but they're bulky and you don't want them cluttering up your bench. A smaller panel saw like this is very easy to handle and they're convenient to have lying right where you're working. So, do you need to have both handsaws and panel saws? Absolutely not. It is a pure convenience to have both. My handsaws are more aggressive than my panel saws, so I reach for these when I want to make a finer cut. But if I've got really big stock to work with, I don't use these. I stick with my big handsaws. So I've got a rip cut and a cross-cut handsaw and a rip cut and a cross-cut panel saw. That's probably a setup to work towards, but when you're first buying saws, just get whatever you can find. Even if one of your saws is a panel saw and the other one is full size, that's fine too. Of course, if you're going to use vintage handsaws, you also have to restore them. But the good news is restoring an old saw like this one is one of the quickest and most rewarding things you can do in the shop. It usually only takes a few hours to take something that looks like junk and bring it back to being a fine tool. You also don't need a lot of supplies for one of these restorations. You need some triangular saw files for shaping and sharpening the teeth. You'll need sandpaper, mineral spirits, some finishing supplies for the handle, and that's about it. You're also going to need a saw vise, and there's a bunch of ones out there, and you can also make your own. This is one I made in the shop. I've got a great set of plans for this vise that we recently remade in Fusion 360, so they're really clear and easy to follow. What's great about this vise is that we use an inexpensive toggle clamp to provide the tension, so it snaps open and closed really quickly, and it gives you a super tight hold on the saw. I'll put a link to those plans down in the description. Now, when you're looking for these saws and trying to decide on condition, it's mostly common sense. As long as the saw doesn't have any really obvious damage, it's probably good. Here are a couple things to look out for. You should sight down the saw, usually using the back, and it shouldn't be super bent or wavy. A little bend is okay. Those are very common. They don't affect how things work. You also want to look at the teeth. You can have a couple missing teeth, and the teeth can be a little bit irregular, but they shouldn't be crazy looking. You shouldn't have like enormous teeth next to tiny teeth. That's a saw that was poorly sharpened, and it's going to be tough to bring back again. You also want to look at the handle. Most of my saws have some replacement wood on the handle somewhere. If the handle's like 90% there and it's missing a horn or something else, I'll glue on another piece of wood and then shape it and blend it in. That's easy, but I've never seen a saw that I liked so much that I wanted to make a whole new handle for it. That's usually way too time-consuming. You also need to pay attention to rust. So here's the one that my neighbor was throwing away the other day, and it looks really rusty, but this is just surface corrosion. This is not a problem. This will just come off with sandpaper. What you want to look for is heavy, flaky rust that's actually coming off the plate and deep pitting on the plate. That's severe damage, and that will make the saw difficult or impossible to use. The last thing you want to look at is the depth of the saw plate. So here's one I bought when I was just getting started in the craft, and it's a totally okay tool. I don't regret buying it, but I wouldn't buy it again. You see how narrow it is down here at the toe? Well, that just means it's been sharpened a lot of times. As you sharpen the saw, it gets narrower. Compare this one to the one I have in the vise. This saw has way more life left in it. It's got years left in it. Whereas this saw is a little bit closer to the end of life. But if you just look for those things when you're buying a saw and don't spend too much money, you're almost guaranteed to get a decent tool. But what if you live someplace where you just can't get vintage tools? What are you supposed to do then? Well, for a long time, if you wanted new, inexpensive handsaws, the only thing you could get was this style of saw. This is called a hard point saw because the teeth are treated at the factory to be super hard and durable, and they do last a long time, but you really can't sharpen them in the home shop. Most people use them until they get dull and then just throw them away. On top of that, it's kind of a mediocre tool. The handle isn't very good, the plate is too thick, it makes a very rough cut. These just aren't great for a lot of reasons. Luckily, a lot of manufacturers have started reintroducing resharpenable saws. And that's a big deal because you have a saw like this Backsaw saw right here. And Backsaw is a really well-known name in steel and edge tools. They make a lot of good stuff. And this saw is no exception. It doesn't look very impressive, but the biggest thing is it's resharpenable. So when it gets dull, you can fix that yourself. It's also got a very thin, fine plate, so it leaves a really nice curve. It's got 7 teeth per inch, which is great. It's a nice blend of smoothness and aggression, so you can get a lot done without really tearing up your work. Now, these come in what they call a hybrid tooth pattern, which is supposed to be rip and crosscut, and that doesn't really exist. This is really a crosscut saw that can kind of do rip cuts. That being said, here's some footage of me resawing a piece of sapele. This is a very demanding rip saw cut, and it takes a while because the saw isn't made for it, but the results are completely decent. And then, since these saws are resharpenable, you can also change the tooth configuration. So if you got one of these and it's a crosscut saw, but you wanted a rip saw, well, it wouldn't be very difficult to refile this with rip teeth. These saws also come in at under $30, so you could buy a pair of them, have one of them as a crosscut saw, refile one of them as a rip saw, and then you'd have all of your hand saws covered for less than $60. I've had this one in my shop for about a year. I use it all the time, and I still haven't sharpened it. So I think if you get a couple of these, they're going to last you for years. Okay, let's review. No matter who you are, if you're getting started in hand tool woodwork, I recommend you begin with a Ryoba saw. You can buy a cheap one or a more expensive one, no matter what you get. They're easy to start, they cut smoothly, and you can do a lot of projects with one of these as your only saw. In fact, you can check out my book, Everyday Woodworking, which is filled with projects, and most of them can be done with a Ryoba as your only saw. And don't worry, the book is back in stock, so if you order it, you're actually going to get it. Now, once you've outgrown the Ryoba and you're ready to move up to more aggressive tools, then I recommend you buy some hand saws. Whether you go new or vintage, hand saws are going to make your work much faster and more efficient because they make it quick to break down that initial stock and get working on those individual components more quickly. If you'd like to find out more about things like sawing, you might want to check out that exclusive patron lecture series that I mentioned earlier in the video. We call it the Workbench Sessions, and it's where I have a big name in woodworking come in and deliver exclusive content just for my patrons every month. And we have been lucky to have some really big names in woodworking so far, like Shannon Rogers and Ron Hock. And I am super excited to announce that this month's guest is none other than Roy Underhill. St. Roy himself is going to be coming in for a full 1-hour interview where I get to ask him any question I want. Actually, I get to ask him any question my patrons want, because there's going to be a live chat during the interview, and we've got a great discussion happening on our discussion board where people are contributing questions and topics. So really, I'm not even asking the questions. My patrons are. If you'd like to be one of the people who gets in on that discussion, go on over to patreon.com/RexKrueger and sign up to be one of the people who makes these videos possible. Anyway, this was a big topic with a lot of stuff to cover. I obviously have to come back and cover the other end of things, which is joinery saws, dovetail saws, tenon saws, stuff like that. I will do that in a future video. Hit that bell icon so you don't miss it. Thanks for watching.